Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosa Hernandez. I'm with Workforce Solutions South Plains. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Workforce Solutions South Plains. And with me, I have Mr. Jay Warnick. He is the Director of Continuing Education at Workforce Development at South Plains College. Mr. Warnick has over 20 years of experience in management with several Fortune 100 and Fortune 400 companies. And before entering the management arena, Mr. Warnick spent 6 years honing his leadership skills in the U.S. Army in light infantry. Mr. Warnick, a native of Lubbock, Texas, holds a BBA and an MBA, both with concentrations in international management from Texas Tech, and is currently writing his dissertation as a doctoral candidate in the Education and Organizational Change Program at Baylor University. And to his right, we have Noel Morin. He is the strategic planner with Workforce Solutions South Plains. Thank you. Mr. Morin has served as the Director of Strategic Planning at Workforce Solutions South Plains for the past 2 years. And prior to his role, he held positions as the Program Monitor and Lead Supervisor for the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, also known as the WIOA program. We love acronyms. So when coming to Workforce Solutions, Mr. Morin brought with him a decade of experience in social services as the Regional Quality Assurance Manager at Texas Health and Human Services. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Rafael Aguilera. He is Executive Director of Human Resources at Wayland Baptist University. Mr. Aguilera has been the Executive Director of Human Resources at Wayland Baptist University for the past 3 years. Prior to that, he worked 6 years for XFAB at the company's Employee Relations Organizational Development Specialist. He also worked as Human Resources Business Partner for Covenant Health and Training Specialist for the City of Lubbock. And outside of his human resources position, he served 13 years as Associate Dean of Workforce Development for South Plains College. So we have a wealth of knowledge up at this table, and we'll be discussing recruiting, training, and retaining employees in today's economy. We know that after COVID, there was employers experienced a lot of issues with hiring and retaining employees, and job seekers as well. I mean, they were out of work depending on the occupations that they were in. So we're going to get started really quickly, and we will ask Noel. What are the unique challenges that are faced by rural job seekers in our community?
Good afternoon again. My name is Noel Morin with Workforce Solutions South Plains. And before I kind of jump into that answer, I just kind of want to preface that Workforce Solutions is spread across all the South Plains. So we are in Lubbock, we are in Levelland, we're here in Plainview, we're in Brownfield, and we're in Muleshoe. So when the question like that she just asked about the unique challenges, faced by rural areas, we have office directly in these rural areas. So I feel like we have our finger on the pulse, and we get to hear from job seekers all across the South Plains. And the first thing we hear is limited job opportunities, limited training opportunities, limited access to education and training. So Workforce Solution, again, attempts to train the workforce by providing support services using our WIOA program to help fill these skill gaps and help enable our citizens on the South Plains to become self-sufficient.
And let's go to Rafael. How can small businesses compete with larger businesses in talent acquisition?
I think one of the challenges for businesses of all sizes is trying to find good quality individuals that are going to be adding quality to your company. I think those challenges are, very, very evident for large businesses. I think for smaller businesses, there may be some different challenges. It could be because with small businesses, you don't have as many resources. You don't have as many avenues to try to attract potential employees. But I always feel that you have to look at what your strengths are as a business, regardless of size, and capitalize on those strengths. One of the advantages of a small business is perhaps you may be more involved with the actual applicants. Large businesses have way too many applicants for them to have that personal touch. So whether they use artificial intelligence or other technology methods to sift through applicants, you can lose some really good ones through the cracks. You know, I use the analogy, I'm still one of those individuals that I like to go to the grocery store and buy my own stuff. I want to be able to look at the apples or the pears or, you know, the vegetables. I want to see them, I want to hold them for me to make the selection of what's going to be put into my basket as opposed to having somebody shop for those items for me. So while there are some challenges there, I think the key thing is to capitalize on whatever your strengths are, because there are a lot of strengths that small businesses have that have advantages over the large businesses, and not see your size as an obstacle in finding good employees.
Thank you. And Jay, what do you see as the biggest obstacle to small businesses in getting the skilled labor that they need to successfully run their business?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. Every business, whether it's large or small, struggles with finding and hiring good people. And for our small businesses, especially that skilled labor like the welders, the HVAC, the plumbers, carpenters, all those that do all those jobs for all these small businesses, there is a gap in that skill set. And what happens here is, this was part of my research, every student in the state of Texas under House Bill 5 has to take at least 2 years of continuing education. It could be software engineering, or it could be welding or whatever. And the idea of House Bill 5 is that you would get foundational training like in welding, and you'd get your basic welding certificate. And then after that, you'll go on to a community college, and then you'll specialize and do what aluminum welding or finish up with your HVAC license and all that. And it doesn't happen. 30% of high school students in Texas already are going to a 4-year university or to a community college to get associates and then go on to a 4-year college after they graduate. And so that 70% should be going on to a community college and following up on a trade skill and learning a skill. In the community colleges in Texas, we only see 12% of those students, and some years it's 10%. And so the breakdown is that no one in high school sits down with students and says, here's your options. You can go learn to be an HVAC repair person, and you're probably going to make more money than somebody gets a college degree. And you can go on financial aid. And you can get it done in 2 years. And you don't have to take, excuse me, and you don't have to take math and all that other stuff that you didn't like in high school. And no one sits down and tells them that. So they don't know that these are options for them. And that's where your trade skills breakdown is happening. Now, how do we fix that? If somebody can tell me the answer, I'd love to know. But that's why we're having small businesses just having so hard a time finding those qualified electricians, those qualified plumbers to fill those positions. And that's what's going on. And excuse me, I don't want to point fingers at the counselors. I understand in the high school, they're dealing with things they're not supposed to be. The American Association of High School Counselors said it should be about 1 counselor for every 250 students. The average in the state of Texas is 1 to 480. And so they're dealing with so much they don't have time. And so that's what needs to change within our high school system, is that we need someone to sit down with that 70% and say, this is what you can do. And then we'll start to fill that skills gap that small businesses need, and we'll have more trained professionals out there that are seeking jobs and wanting to work for small businesses.
That leads us right next into the next question. Noel, how can businesses address the skills gap and upskill their existing workforce?
Well, kind of follow up on what Jay said. The difference between the skills that employers need and the skills that the job seekers have, that's the definition of the skill gap. And speaking with a lot of businesses, we're seeing that they're reskilling their own employees. They're sending them back to boot camp. They're trying to identify the deficiencies in the success or failure of a project and figure what attributed to those skills. So besides that, they're also developing a training plan. You're seeing more and more businesses ask these questions up front of their employees. What's your plan in 1 year? What's your plan in 2 years? What would you like to get out of this relationship, if you will? And they develop a training or customized training for those new workers. Also partnering with educational institutions like South Plains College, like Wayland Baptist University. You have TMAC in the back that does really great training for any kind of manufacturers. And just investing in continuous learning. I think we're approaching that point where we have to continually upskill ourselves, if you will, okay? There's so many programs out there, Coursera, LinkedIn, where you can just log in and again, go through certain trainings and you can challenge yourself to upskill yourself. So I think that's one of the solutions that we could do is basically assessing our workforce, assessing our employees, finding out what their plan is, and then holding them accountable to that plan.
Thank you. And Rafael, what strategies can business owners follow to increase employee retention?
It is very important, I think, that as we look to hire people for the vacant positions that we have, to find the right fit. That's one of the first challenges. The second challenge then is, or one of the next challenges is, how do we retain good employees? There's not a worse feeling in the world. I've experienced it myself, when I've had a great employee that tells me, I'm letting you know that I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice, I'm moving on. And you automatically start thinking about that gap that's going, or that void that's going to be there as that person is leaving, because not only are you having to replace someone who maybe is very good at what they do, but they may also bring a lot of the other intangibles, being team-oriented, having the right behavior, having the right attitude, being positive. Those things are hard to replace. So I think as employees, as someone is leaving, and you tell that person, well, let me talk to someone to see if maybe we can make you an offer. Perhaps you want to change your mind. Many times by then it's too late. They've already made up their mind that they're leaving. So I think it's very important to be very proactive from the very beginning to have conversations with employees, to talk to them, because you don't know what it is that they want in a job. I first started out, I was all about how much are you going to pay me. Then as I got married and I had kids, the benefits is very important. Now that I'm kind of beyond that a little bit, it's flexibility is becoming very important for me in a job. So you have to work from the very get-go to retain them. So professional development, as was just talked about, is very important. We want our employees to continue to learn. Ask them questions. What are the things that you're not learning that you want to learn? There's a concept out there, and I actually utilized it. I wish I would have invented it, because I probably would have been retired by now, but it's called stay interviews. Stay interviews, many organizations do exit interviews when an employee is leaving to find out why they're leaving. But stay interviews are done with employees that are still there, and you ask those key questions to see if in fact they are happy, if they are engaged, if they see a purpose for themselves in that organization, or if they're looking to move on. Then you got to take that information and use whatever is within your means and what is under your control to do that. Sometimes you have employees that want to be challenged more. Sometimes you have employees that want more, more responsibility. So having those conversations, invest your time with them, invest resources with them, and that's going to increase the chances of you retaining them. If they do happen to leave, I left the job one time, not because I was unhappy. It's just I had a much better job opportunity in terms of my growth. And so it was a very difficult decision for me to leave that particular organization. But I told my manager at the time that it was not because of anything that the organization was doing wrong or things that I were not getting. It was just a better opportunity. And those are going to happen. But be proactive and try to keep those employees. Have conversations with them, find out what it is that they need, what's going to take to retain them.
Thank you. And Jay, speaking of training, so what area of training is currently just now emerging that you feel will have a big impact on small businesses?
There's really 2 areas right now that are really expanding, and first kind of goes along with one of the panels that we heard earlier, and that is that a lot of small businesses are sending themselves or somebody within their company to do cybersecurity training. I had a live course, and then I lost my instructor. We're trying to rehire, but I do have an online course, and so I'm seeing a lot of, when we see who's registering, it's registered under small businesses, and people are training someone in-house to do their cybersecurity and guard their email and all those kind of things, and your websites and everything that you have. And so just emerging training that you can take online. There's other companies that do it. You can go out there and look, but we are seeing a real growth in that area where small businesses are saying, hey, I'm not an expert. I don't have anybody on staff, but there's malwares out there. There's all sorts of things that can harm my business. And so I need somebody trained that can do that cybersecurity and watch our online areas that we operate in for our small businesses. And then the other one is we just started it a year ago. Drones are becoming a huge part of a lot of businesses. Small businesses are using them. We offer the FAA Part 107 drone licensing course where you finish and you take the FAA exam and you're a licensed drone pilot. I'm seeing people that are in construction. I'm seeing people that are in all sorts of businesses like that are learning how to get an employer themselves to learn how to drive a drone so they can do over aerial photography and videos of areas they're going to be constructing on or doing other things like that. And so that's another emerging area that I think as time goes by, you're going to see more and more drones brought into all sorts of businesses that we don't even think that they're going to be in, and that is slowly changing. And so there's going to be a lot of small businesses that are going to start using drones in their everyday workplace.
Okay, thank you. Noel, what resources are available for small businesses to access funding for workforce development programs?
There are lots of resources out there for small businesses. I'm looking across at TMAC and I'm looking over here at the Texas Workforce Commission, and I see them at all these events together. So there's so many federal programs, state programs, and then I consider us to be like the local resource. So federal programs, we have the WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It allows us to provide a tuition assistance for training for adults, dislocated workers, and for youth. Youth being the future pipeline of talent for any community. So we also have incumbent worker training specifically for small businesses. That's where our business services can meet with you, help you figure out what kind of customized training that it is you need, and then we'll share the cost with it for you. We also offer middle skills grants, upskills grants, high demand job training grants. This is a really big one with all of the high schools. Earlier, Jay mentioned the emphasis on education in our student pipeline, our high schools, our junior highs. Well, we have a career and outreach specialist that goes to junior highs to have these conversations with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. What is it you want to do? And then she also meets with high schoolers. Again, we want to catch them in as early as we can and help them figure out what they want to do. We also provide TIP grants, okay? That's a Texas Industry Partnership grant. We treat these like scholarships for any occupation that's considered targeted in our area, primarily construction. We have CDL and medical. Medical's huge. And then recently, we just finished up our teacher externship program. Now, that's a really neat opportunity where we invite teachers, middle school and high school teachers, to participate. And what they do is they pick a business locally, and they job shadow that business for 3 days, okay? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out what it is. They're trying to, no, let me rephrase that. They want to teach what's, got a little tongue twisted. What's being taught in the classrooms and how it's being applied in the workforce. That's what the teachers want, and it's very important for them to see. So when they job shadow a business for 3 days, they write a lesson plan for us, and then we're able to pay them an $850 stipend. But more importantly is the network connections that the teacher's actually making with these businesses. Because afterwards, I've seen where the teacher does a field trip with this business, or they'll bring in this business to conduct mock interviews with the student. And then there you have, again, your finger on the pulse of the pipeline talent that's coming out.
Thank you, Noel. Jay, what do you feel can be done presently to help train the future small business workforce?
Kind of along what Noel was saying, everybody, no matter what your business is, reach out to me or somebody, if you're at Amarillo Community College, any of those. Reach out to those directors and talk to them about what kind of training that you need. I'll give you a good example. There's a nonprofit in Leveland, and they train people that go out and are energy auditors for homes, for new construction. They go out and make sure they're meeting the federal standard of what a new home has to be built. There's not even a training place or testing center in the state of Texas. There used to be one in Houston, and now it's gone. And so he was sending his employees to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to Santa Fe Community College to get trained and then get tested. And through that process, SBC is now fixing to be a testing center. And so I'm about to go to Santa Fe in about 3 weeks to meet with them. And we've already been approved by the Building Performance Institute, which is funded through the EPA, to be a testing and training center. And it'll be there on the Leveland campus. And so that's what I'm saying. Whatever your small businesses, whatever skills you need, whatever training you need from your employees, if you can't find it in your area or want to reach out to that community college. I'm always looking for new programs and new training to start up for any business, whether they're large or small, but especially the smaller businesses, because a lot of times y'all have small specialized training that needs to be done because of the nature of your businesses that you do. And it's great to start a training program. You know, it may be just something you do once a year or something like that, but we're all community colleges, that's part of our outreach, is to help you find qualified trained individuals. And so if you have some specialized training, or maybe it is a certain type of welding or something and they're very hard to find, don't hesitate to reach out and find a director at that community college, especially like in workforce development and continuing ed. And I promise you, we will be more than happy to work with you and find a trainer and get your employees trained up on it. Even if it's something we only do once every 5 years or something like that. That's part of the outreach of a community college, and so we want to develop those deals. And so, but don't hesitate to go and talk to or call or email, you know, a director at a community college and say, hey, my employees need to know how to do this. We can't get this training anymore. We're having to send them, you know, all the way to Houston to get this done. And they'll work with you, and we can develop an in-house program for you. And so there's always ways to find, you know, or maybe it's something we can do online and then, or something like that. And so it's just, that's your best resource, is to find a director at a community college that can help you out and work on those training and skill sets that you need for your employees.
Thank you. Noel, how do we maximize training opportunities in rural Texas?
And we kind of talked about it earlier today, but I think it's really important to leverage the technology that we have. Okay, we have broadband internet, and we have access to so many free trainings out there. Libraries now offer free trainings on their website. Most universities offer free trainings on their website somewhere or another. And then kind of what we're in here for today, partner with your local institutions, okay? We have South Plains College and we have Wayland Baptist right here, two powerhouses on the South Plains. When we create this consortium of small businesses, your voice is louder. So this is part of the process. We can promote and we can facilitate access to these types of trainings. And again, with Workforce Solutions, we can provide you, we can try and fill in those gaps for you.
Okay, thank you. So now that we've recruited and trained them, we know we want to keep them. So Rafael, what is the importance of a company culture, and how do you create and maintain a culture that will attract the right employees for your company and keep the good ones?
So my first job well, I think it was still personnel before human resources. I was one of 20 staff members, and so I had hair, it was dark. I was the youngest one in the department. You know, and now I look around and it's like I'm one of the older people, I think, in this area in human resources. What I've seen over the years and in the different jobs that I've held, specifically in human resources, I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of employees, especially when you do employee relations. There's always, you know, some type of conflict that's going on, or between employees, or sometimes between a manager and an employee. I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, and I think, you know, I've kind of come to a conclusion that one of the things that's very important that many times is overlooked, something that typically is not going to cost an organization, regardless of size, any money, is your company culture. I think it's very important for you, regardless of what size your business is, for you to define what you want that culture to be in your organization. If you're a business owner or if you're in upper management of the organization, you have a big say-so on what that culture should look like. So you got to define it. What is it? Because I think as you're trying to recruit and hire the right people, you got to understand it's more than just a job that you're looking to fill. You know, especially if you want to keep them and you want to attract the right people, you got to know what it is that you're recruiting them for, beyond just being an accountant or, you know, or administrative assistant. So define what that culture is, and then make sure that whatever that culture is defined as, that everybody that works for that organization understands what that culture is and that they're a part of that culture. Many times I see organizations that have, you know, mission statements, core values, company culture, and they'll have in every room in the building, conference rooms, they have them framed and posted on the walls. But then you see what's happening out there in offices and hallways, and people are not living up to that culture. They're not following core values. And it creates a big confusion, I think, especially for new employees, to say for a whole week I was in new employee orientation, they were telling me the importance of these things, how I should be professional, how I should be respectful. And the first day I go out there in my office, all I hear is my coworkers gossiping about stuff. So it creates a lot of confusion and inconsistencies with that. So I think if you define that, you identify what that culture is, what you want it to be, you put it in play, then you do the best that you can to make sure that the people that are working there are living up to that culture. And I think that's really important. I think it keeps those employees that are good, solid employees, when they see that and people are being held accountable, they're going to be happier there. They're not going to be looking to go somewhere else. But if you don't, or if you don't stand by your words or whatever your mission is and your core values, you're probably going to see the opposite. I think it's very important. Many times that's, I think, a component in a lot of organizations where that is not something that is stressed enough. I work for a company that we would have our top executives come over and they would do training sessions on the mission statement and the core values of the organization. And I used to hear all the employees, most of the employees just grumble all the time. It's like, why do we have to do this every year? Every year we come into this big room and we get to hear all this information about our core values and how we should respect each other. And the CEO said, at one point said, the reason I do it is because we're not there yet. Until we get to the point where every employee is where we need to be when it comes to that, then I will no longer make the trip to come and talk to you all about it. So I think it's very important, I think, that why culture is so important, hire people to that culture, and make sure your culture is a living, breathing thing and not just something that you have framed in your conference rooms.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Are there any questions that I did not ask and you would like to share more information on?
I just want to say a little bit more about training. Another great thing about, reaching out to someone like myself at a community college, even if it's something like, trucking, or you have employees that need a CDLA or CDLB or something like that. I work with Noel. I work with the Texas Workforce Commission. I've worked with TMAC. I know all about grants and scholarships through the Texas Workforce Commission. We partner with a company called MET, which is Motivation, Education, and Training. They offer a $5,000 scholarship for our truck driving school, and the only criteria is that you worked in an agriculture-related industry. And so I work with all these entities, and so I can lead you in the right direction. If you say, hey, I need to get 2 people from a CDL Class A driver's license, and it's going to cost me almost $12,000 out of pocket. Can you help me? Who do I go to? And I can lead you in the right direction. I can lead you to somebody that can help you finance that specialized training and get your employees trained. And so that's why that's another advantage of partnering with your local community college director is that he works in these industries and he knows all the players. And he knows somebody like Noel that's got scholarship money, and he can facilitate that, getting your funding so that you don't have to pay as much out of pocket, or you may not have to pay anything. And there's a lot of grants through the Texas Workforce Commission that are specifically for small businesses, and it's for training. And so you can partner with a community college, and they can do a skills grant or something like that, and it'll pay for, I think it's $1,500 for the small businesses, depending on how many employees, and you put all your people through a specified training, and maybe a training that you want done, and we develop it for you, and then the Texas Workforce Commission, the grant will pay up to that amount. So there's options for small businesses out there to get great training, get your employees trained on, and get them the skills that they need to help you run your business and help your business grow.
I think most of us, whenever we're going to make an investment or we're going to purchase something, we, especially say a house or a brand new vehicle, as much as vehicles cost nowadays, sometimes they're just as expensive as a new house. But we do our research because it's a big investment. Those of you who are in a position to hire individuals, don't be desperate. My word of advice is just like you're making it's because it's going to be a very big investment on your part, regardless of what position you're filling. You can say, well, it's just the person that sits at the front that answers the phone, directs traffic. that position is very critical and very crucial to your organization. So treat it as an investment. Make sure you do your research. Ask the right questions in an interview process. Ask questions that you are going to get information. We all know that when somebody goes to an interview, they're probably not going to tell you, well, I'm kind of lazy, I don't really like to work, and I don't get along with people. It's, well, I'm being honest, will you hire me? No, we all know they're going to tell us things we want to hear. So try to find questions that you can ask more in depth, where you can obtain some of that information so you can kind of get a feel for this individual. Most importantly, is this someone who's going to be a good fit for my organization? That's super important. Same thing as someone who's a job seeker. They should be looking for a job or an organization where they feel that organization is going to be a good fit for what they're looking for. So take the time, don't be desperate, find the right person, because that's going to pay dividends, as opposed to just hiring, well, I've only had 2 people apply in the last 6 months, so, of the 2, this one was better, but, really not that great, but I'm going to go ahead and hire that person. That can create and cause more damage in your organization than having that position vacant.
I think I would just add that our business, Workforce Solutions, it's in the name. We can be a solution for you. So reach out to us. Let us know what we can do for you. Let us know how we can help you. And I think the last point that I would just kind of like to make is that the future workforce is about to start school here in about 2 weeks. So it's important to kind of get ahead of the game. It's important to have these connections with your training providers, with your high schools, to develop these programs so when the future workforce does come, hopefully they'll have the skills that you need.
Were there any questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to know, like we have a restaurant. Why is it harder, for the restaurants to keep employees, and what can we do to try to keep employees, especially for the restaurant business?
I would say this, again, just my opinion, because I eat at restaurants, so I know about that part of it, right? I think in some industries it is just more difficult. Perhaps it's because you've got individuals that, because there are so many restaurants, if they find somewhere that's going to pay them 30 cents an hour more, $1 an hour more, or maybe their schedules are a little bit different, they have places that they can go. In situations like that. I know with other types of industries, what I've seen, that's kind of the case, because there is a lot of competition, because there are a lot of companies within that same industry. So employees have choices. So sometimes, no matter what, you probably want to look at that maybe to see what are some things that you can do. It's not, and I can tell you, a lot of times I've talked to employees that are leaving organizations. It's not always about the pay. A lot of times it's like, well, I was made to feel like I really wasn't important there. I was made to feel like I didn't have a say-so in anything. My input, my feedback was never asked for. It was a toxic work culture. Those are all things that it doesn't require, like I said, money. It's part of your culture, part of your environment. But, that's a good question. But I think if you talk to a lot of restaurant owners, I can't speak for them since I'm not one, but I think they run into some of the same challenges that you're facing is, losing. Then you get new people and you got to train them, and how all that works is just a vicious cycle. But perhaps it's that. It's just, sometimes it's the nature of the beast. I work in manufacturing here in our front, our entry-level operators. We were hiring every 3 weeks. We were hiring about 10 new people, and we could not find what was the solution to that. We started paying higher wages. Turnover was still the same. So somewhere out there, I think there's some strategies that can be utilized, but I think sometimes it's just an uphill battle in finding that answer. Sometimes it's not easy.
I'll just add a little bit. Maybe you are, if you're not, if I would do exit interviews, and when somebody quits, talk to them and say, why are you leaving us? And then that may give you some of the idea about what's going on with it. It may not be pay, it may be something about the work environment, and so I would encourage you, if you can, and if you're not already, to do exit interviews and talk with those individuals about, hey, why are you leaving us? We don't want you to leave, and you may hear something, because it's the same thing. It's like unionization. Pay is never the top of the list. You would think so when people decide they're going to unionize. It's usually down at the bottom of the list. It's all those other tangible things about how they were treated, their access to owner management, and all those kind of things, the way they felt like they were, am I part of this team, or you know, and those kind of things. And so that's what causes people to leave. It's usually the pay. Sometimes the pay is there, but most of the time, just like when people decide they're going to union, it's down at the bottom list. It's all the other things that is making their work-life balance or their work environment something that they just say, I can't deal with this anymore. But and you hear those in exit interviews. When you do exit interviews with somebody, if they're willing to do it, they'll tell you what their beef was or why they're leaving, and then that can maybe give you some opportunity as an owner or manager of that small business to start, okay, here's some of the areas we need to work on so our retention of employees stays up.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I read something one time that talked about, you know, workers being either renters or buyers, or owners, I should say, renters or owners. And, you know, for those that approach their job as owners, you know, they take a lot of pride in what they do, not just in their job, but in the organization they're working for. Whereas renters it's a paycheck. You know, I can go work here and earn a paycheck, or I can go there and earn a paycheck. Sometimes too, you know, until you ask employees, not every employee wants to climb the corporate ladder. Not every employee wants to be in management. You know, not every employee wants a lot of responsibility. Then you have others that do. So sometimes just talking to those employees to find out what it is that they're seeking sometimes can help with that retention. But I think in most cases, again, if a lot of people are just the renters, I lived in a duplex and I had neighbors on each side of me. Like, it seems like every other month I had new neighbors. You know, I was there for 3 years and I saw so many people come and go because, again, we were just renting, right? So trying to distinguish between that and what people want in a job sometimes can help. But again, it is a tough challenge.
Please help me give a big hand to our panel here and all for their insight.